story to share as an answer. Laurie, tell us. Laurie Fabiano.
Get the strangers out of our house. That, believe it or not, is how my grandmother would greet my friends. As you can imagine, I wasn't real fond of her. This is a photo of my grandmother on her 4th birthday in 1909 in New York City. When I was 16, I found out that the day after this picture was taken, she was kidnapped, abducted by one of the gangs of extortionists known as the Black Hand that preyed in Little Italy's. They had her 3 months, and it was only because of the strength and cunning of my great-grandmother that she was returned alive. It took me years to get the full story, but when I did, I was finally able to love my grandmother and to understand the transformative power of knowing your family history. That set me on a journey. I created a family tree and traveled to Scilla, Italy, the Calabrian fishing village my family came from. Within an hour of arriving, I was shocked to discover we still had relatives in Scilla. That led to endless meals and bottles of wine, but also the realization that my ancestors' story, my story, was shared by people I didn't even know existed. Better yet, we each held missing puzzle pieces of our family's narrative. When I saw Sheila, I could not understand why my grandfather said he would never return. Turns out there was a good reason. In 1908, there was an earthquake and tsunami that killed over 100,000 people in Sicily and Calabria. Most of Sheila was wiped out. When I asked my newly found cousin Cesare how we survived, he told me a remarkable story about how my family was in a small fishing boat slightly north of the tidal wave that slammed back and forth across the Strait of Messina. They nearly drowned, and they may have wished they had when they reached the shore. Everything and everyone they ever loved was gone. As a 12-year-old, my grandfather spent nearly a year digging up the bodies of his friends and relatives. Family stories can also help make history tangible. World War II became more than facts and figures when my dad told us his story. He was on a carrier headed to the Pacific, but because he was a good swimmer, he was taken off the ship and stationed in Hawaii as a water combat instructor. His brother wasn't so lucky. He was fighting on the front lines in Germany. Throughout the war, my dad would send him letters that included a handful of sand. The thought of my uncle freezing in a foxhole, pouring that sand through his fingers, made the tragedy of war, and the randomness, real and heartbreaking. So, as I learned, family history can help you better understand yourself, others, and the past. But it is critically important for another reason. From the Human Genome Project to the proliferation of genealogy sites, we are discovering our past and plotting family trees in huge numbers. There's now nearly 41 million family trees on Ancestry.com alone. But those trees are just a start, armatures for the narratives. The stories are what matter. Why? Because history is storytelling. And most of the stories have been told by people who look like this. Granted, there's probably some fine historians in that bunch, but history written from one perspective can be skewed and incomplete. Family stories can help counter the single narratives that so often become history. They can bring to light little-known events like the 1908 Italian earthquake and the terror of the Black Hand. And family histories can help fight stereotypes. For Italian Americans, heroines like my great-grandmother Giovanna, who fought the Black Hand, they've been obscured by entertainment that has romanticized the mafia and Jersey Shored the culture. Eventually, I wrote a novel based on our family stories. Thousands of people have said that the book parallels their own immigrant family history and that it has opened windows to their past. I thought I had written a story about my family, and it turns out it's a collective story of a people and an era that's rarely in textbooks. History is powerful. It helps us understand the present and guides our future. But whose history is it? What other stories are we missing? Perhaps if historical accounts were more inclusive, we would make better choices as a society today. So, what's in your attic? What light can your family story shed on our past? I dare you to find out.